Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Sjaelland in Denmark and revisit a brewery that's featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years. They were one of the first Danish craft breweries that I ever discovered, and I would say that they are still a really top class brewery in my opinion. So if you haven't tried some of their beers, I highly recommend that you do. But the one that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases. We've had a few examples of this style before, which have always been really nice, so I have to say I'm very curious to see how this one turns out. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to Svinninge, which is right in the centre of Sjaelland Island, the kind of easternmost of the main Danish islands, I guess we could say, the one on which Copenhagen sits, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Toul, or Two Beers as you would say in English. So this particular beer is the number 6 double IPA. It comes in at 9% ABV, so a little bit stronger than the other ones we've had before, but like I say, this is supposed to be a very nice beer. But this beer was released here in Sweden as part of the Tilfälligt temporary sortiment through Systembolaget on the 28th of September 2021, but it's been available in Copenhagen for a few weeks prior to that actually. So yeah, this should be really nice. A 9% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and we've had a few from this series before. I think we had the 1, 2 and 4, so this will be the 4th one that I'm trying in this particular series. But let's see how we go then. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Toul before, and you will no doubt see me add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly, of course, because I live in the south of Sweden, very close to Denmark, and I love my Danish beers. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Toul. So Toul, as I've told you before, it was founded by Tobias Emil Jensen and Tore Ganter, who were actually students of Mikael Bjergsø, the big boss of Mikkeller. He used to be a physics and maths teacher. But originally they brewed with him in their school kitchens in around 2005, and then they continued to homebrew until about 2010 when they founded Toul together, which in English means two beers, as I mentioned too. But when Mikael heard that his former students were still brewing, he insisted that they do a collaboration brew together, and this was what became the first commercial Toul beer, which was simply called Double IPA. But they very quickly built a strong reputation for themselves, and with the help of Mikkeller, they managed to distribute their beers worldwide from very early on. But as is the case with Mikkeller, these guys were originally a gypsy brewery, and so they didn't own their own equipment, and they brewed using spare capacity other large breweries. But in Nørrebro in Copenhagen, they had a collaborative beer bar. They still have it, I should say. They have a collaborative beer bar with Mikkeller, which is called Mikkeller and Friends. I went there quite recently to film a little out and about video, so you can check that out. But the bar has an exclusive bottle shop and 40 different tap beers, and these days they've also got the Bruce Brew Pub in Copenhagen, which opened back in 2016 in partnership with Christian Gadiant. And there's now a second Bruce bar in Oslo in Norway as well. Now, from what I understand, these two brew pubs operate independently, so they've got full control of their brewing and stuff like this. They basically operate as independent businesses under the Toul umbrella, I guess you could say. But these guys are co-owners in the various Mikkeller and Friends venues, which includes the bar in Reykjavik, and also the bottle shop in Torvehalen in Copenhagen as well, which I do recommend you check out. That's a lovely market. But they also co-own at the Coolship and Micropolis bars too, which are definitely worth checking out. But since 2017, Tore Ganter has been in charge of the company after Tobias Emil Jensen left to found the ETOH Spirits Company, ETOH as in ethanol. So he's now into distilling spirits rather than brewing beer. So I'll need to keep an eye out for some of those. But as of 2019, These guys have a new production facility at Sjaelland on Sjaelland, which is kind of almost in the middle of the island actually, but it has a 150,000 square metre floor space. They have a clean side of the brewery, which has a large German Braucon brew kit, and this side of the brewery is run by Tim, and there's also a sour side of the brewery with fodders and a cool ship, which is for producing the different sour beers, and this is run by Nathan Borg, and it has a lot of space for barrel aging obviously as well. But they released their first beers from Total City in March of 2020, and as of September 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 540 different beers in total, and a number of breweries also brew their beers kind of under license or whatever at Total as well. Mikkeller, sorry, not Mikkeller, I think Mikkeller do brew some of their stuff there, but also Omnipoil as well have brewed some of their things at Total City, and there's a cider brewery that's in there as well, who I think have just merged with Total, if I remember rightly. So there's a lot of very exciting things going on at Total City for the moment, and it's a former fruit factory actually. But I would love to get out there and take a look at it sometime. So I think that is something we will definitely need to do in the future. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Total for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for the moment. Let's see how we go with this beer itself then. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork then, or if you want to learn more about the brewery, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. My favourite beers from them would be Black Salts and Body Malts, Imperial Black IPA, one of the best black IPAs you're going to find on the market in my opinion. Dangerously Close to Stupid is a really nice one as well. Final and First Frontier are very good old school West Coast IPAs that I would recommend that you check out as well. So keep your eyes peeled for those. And I do need to try the black, or is the 8 ball or the Black Ball Porter. I need to try that one at some point too, because that was always quite a popular one back in the day. But yeah, this should be quite a nice beer. But as I say, check out all those links. Let's get on and have a look at the beer itself. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up, let me just bring that closer so the camera can focus. There you go. Just tilt it up. You can see Total Double IPA number 6. I'm having to tilt this because of the silver can. The silver can's a little bit annoying, but yeah, this should be quite nice. So this one actually was very cheap for what it is. I think I paid 40. I've got a feeling that I only paid about 40 Swedish kroner for this, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, that's about €4 for a Danish double IPA at 9%. That is just pretty ridiculous, to be honest with you, because I think the other one that I got was either 170 or 180, because that was quite a special beer. But yeah, I think I only paid about I'm sure I only paid about 40 kroner for this. So yeah, €4, £3.70 sterling, something like that, and about, you know, what, about $4.50 American. It's just a ridiculous price for a 9% Imperial Double New England Hazy IPA. But it says on the side here, so immense that the laws of physics no longer apply. Prepare for things to get weird. Reality is no more. There are only hops now. So yeah, that's good. But just to tell you a little bit about the beer itself, the hops in this one are Zappa, Amarillo and Idaho 7. We know two of those hops quite well. So Amarillo we know is American, 12% alpha acid, lovely big oily zesty orangey characters. Idaho 7's one we've had before as well. That tends to come in about 13-14% alpha acid, if I remember rightly. American once again, and it gives you some really lovely soft, you know, sort of mango-y, apricot, papaya type tropical fruits. But Zappa is a hop that I don't think I've ever had before, come to think of it. So I did a little bit of research on this. So Zappa is an American hop, 8 to 9% alpha acid. It's derived from the Neo-Mexicanus variety, which was wildly cultivated in New Mexico in America, hence the name. And it's supposed to give a big passion fruity note with a lot of spice and some mint in it as well. So yeah, this could be quite interesting. Yeah, that's, as I say, all I could really find about Zappa, but it's supposed to be quite a new variety of hop. Let me just bring the light back up there and we'll see. There we are. No, this isn't working. There we go. But yeah, I just noticed the light got a little bit dark there, so I think that maybe this level works. There we go. Still playing with this, getting used to this new toy. But as we said, 9% New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Let's have a look at this and see how we go then. The double IPA number 6 from Total in Sjaelland on Sjaelland in Denmark. Let's try this. Oh, my thumb doesn't want to get under it. There we go. Oh, that nearly flew open there. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get the beer into the glass. But I'll tell you something, the aroma from this right away is very, very nice. This is going to be good. Here we are. So let me I'm going to put that light down a wee bit. I can see the reflection on the can there, but I think it is just because it's a silver can. That's too little now. I'm getting annoyed with this light. But yeah, anyway, we've got the beer poured. That is the main thing. So before the head disappears, you can see this beer is poured with a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. Yeah, definitely cream coloured rather than pure white. And when it comes to the colour of this beer, I don't know how well you can see that, but it's a lovely, very rich orangey amber kind of haze that you're getting out of this one. So as I always say, I like to compare these New England IPAs to different fruit juices. This one really reminds me very much of a mixed tropical fruit juice, this one. That's really where it's going with this. So like a sort of, you know, mango, pineapple, orange tropical fruit juice. It really is something like that. So yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. That determines the magnitude of the colour. 2, the length of your wort boil. The length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. This one, with that kind of orangey colour that it has, you can tell there's a slightly more brown, sugary orientated malt in this one. You know, otherwise you wouldn't get the kind of orangey tint that this beer has. But any barrel aging that you do, any adjuncts that you put in are also going to play a role, obviously. But when it comes to New England IPAs, you don't generally have to care about that particular variable. But yeah, it certainly looks very, very nice, this one. So yeah, nothing too much else we can say about the colour of it. But in terms of the level of haze, for a 9%er, it's about, you know, it's not the soupiest and gloopiest 8.5, 9%er one that I've come across, but it does have a fairly impressive level of haze to it. So remember, the level of haze depends on 1, the type of the yeast that you use. The oat content and the wheat content are also going to play a role there. But yeah, pretty impressive level of haze to this one. But 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head. But overall, it does look pretty nice. So let's take a look at the aroma then and just see how we go with this beer. Appearance wise, nothing untoward when you consider what style it is. So yeah. Ooh, that smells quite nice. So I'm going to say straight away with this one, you're getting some of the trademark things you would expect from a Tool New England IPA. Actually, the Tool ones in my experience always have this little bit of a slightly crackery, farmhousey sort of thing, and then a big smooth oaty character to them. You can get that right away out of this beer without question. Absolutely, you're getting that in this one. But yeah, I think that's quite apparent in this, but it's got a lovely juicy fruity character to it. There is a wee touch of sweetness there, and the green component for me is quite bright and floral, we'll say that. But yeah, let's break the aroma of this one down a little bit more in depth, can we say. So, backbone of the beer then. Straight away with this one, you can smell that sort of white bread. You can smell a little bit of that kind of Jacob's cream cracker sort of thing, a white bread crusty note, and it's got a little bit of dryness there in the backbone. You do get a little touch of a woody character out of this one. On top of that, certainly some nice white bready notes. I do get a nice kind of smooth white bready character out of it, and I like that, which is good. And you can also smell the wheat kind of thickening out the beer as well. So remember, as I've said with New England IPAs, there's a few different directions with these. They can be farmhousey and yeasty, rye leaning and grainy, wheaty and bitey, oaty creamy, barley malt leaning and bready, or they can also be a little bit more kind of brown sugary leaning and things like this as well. But yeah, the aroma that comes out of this one, I'd say really leans towards the yeasty and oaty side of things, which is what we've encountered with Total before. But on top of the wheaty notes, which are thickening the beer out, you do get a nice bit of a thicker character to this one. You can also smell a nice kind of smooth oatiness in there, and it's got a bit of that oaty creaminess. But I do find the oats a little bit dry in this one, but the more you smell of it, the more it kind of smoothens out and sweetens up in that sense. But for me, it's some lovely Werther's Original, butter candy, butterscotchy sort of things. So I like that about this beer for sure. And yeah, I think the more that you smell of it, you can smell more of the kind of big 9% booziness coming out of the beer. So yeah, I do like how this I do like how this goes together. The brown sugary side of the beer actually I think is quite nice. I do like it when it comes to these big Imperial double IPAs. I do enjoy a little bit of brown sugar, and you can certainly get that out of this beer. I don't think there's much doubt about that, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's look at the green component of things. I don't think there's too much else we really need to say about the malty side of the beer, to be honest, but it does get stickier and stickier the more you smell of it. But yeah, on the green component, there's a little bit of earthiness in there, not too much, wee bit of smoothness, but also some really nice big floral aromatic notes in there. But they're a little bit wet actually. They've got quite a nice brightness and aromaticity to them, but also some big, as you say, you've also got some nice kind of as we say, you've also got a nice little bit of a kind of floral, you've got a little bit of depth to the floral aromaticity, but at the same time it's quite wet and quite aromatic. But you can get quite a bit of grassy zestiness off this hop as well, or off these hops, which is pretty interesting. So I think Amarillo is the one that's going to give you the big zest. Idaho 7 I don't remember being so zesty, it was more juicy and fruity, but the Zappa, that could be contributing to it as well. But yeah, the green component for me leans towards that big zesty, grassy side of the spectrum, but a bit of floral character in behind it for sure. So that is definitely interesting. But yeah, nice green component to this beer. But let's take a quick look at the fruits, and then we can have a taste of this one finally. So yeah, on the fruity side of things, it's actually it's interesting because you certainly get a lot of the soft. You get a lot of soft mango, and you know these. You know, I get a slight bit of guava out of that actually. I do get a little bit of this kind of green guava sort of thing. I always find that guava is a little bit like a very, very ripe green mango, and I get a little bit of that in this. But there's some apricot-y notes in there for sure. Yeah, a little bit of a nicer apricot-y note. Some, you know, like some papaya or some dried fruity elements in it as well. So I do like how that goes together in this beer for sure. But yeah, there's a lot of oily, orangey character to this one, I think. Yeah, I get a big oily, orangey zest from the Amarillo, absolutely. But there's something else in there. There's a little bit of like a pungent, zesty lime, I think, underneath. And I do get just a wee bit, you know, and that's what I'm thinking the Zappa is. That's the thing that stands out to me on this one. This beer, you know, I can see what they're saying when they say mint in this one, but that might be the power of suggestion. But it really has a little bit of a kind of limey zip. What does it say again? It's supposed to have a big passion fruity note. So I actually don't get so much in the way of passion fruit. I get more of a, you get a little bit of it, but I get more of a kind of big juicy mango-y guava sort of thing. And I think that's most likely from the Idaho 7. But then all the other soft tropical fruits, you know, apricot, papaya, blah, blah, blah. And then you get that big oily orangey zest from the Amarillo. I love Amarillo as a hop, incidentally. It's one of my favourites. But yeah, the aroma out of this is pretty interesting, I have to say. I do like how this whole beer goes about its business. I think we can safely say that. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the aroma. Big oily, juicy, fruity character to this one, and quite well balanced. So let's put the rest of the beer in the glass. I'm going to enjoy this one because it's, you know, going out later on, so this is like one of my pre-out beers. So yeah, why not? Don't drink when I'm out, so I might as well go out with a little bit of a buzz and just enjoy it wearing off. So yeah, let's have a taste of this beer and see how we go. So this one is the double IPA number 6, and a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Totul in Svinninge in Denmark. I'm curious about this. My first encounter with the Zappa hop as well. Sláinte, skål, cheers, let's give it a go. As I always say, take some time to enjoy that aroma before you get stuck in. Let's taste this. Yeah. It's pretty similar to what we've had from Totul in the past actually, and it's quite solid. The thing that I'm finding with quite a few of these Totul beers is that even though they show quite a bit of sweetness in the malt base, it doesn't really transpire that much into the flavour. They always tend to be a little bit more kind of bready and a kind of dry oaty in a sense. So maybe that's a little bit to do with the freshness, but I think these beers tend to be bready, oaty, and a bit yeasty. I think that's where Toyle's New England IPAs tend to lie. They tend to lie in that particular end of the spectrum. So maybe when it's as high as this, when it's 9%, I maybe would like a little bit more sweetness out of it. But regardless of that, that's me being picky. But regardless of that, I think it is pretty damn solid. So thumbs up to them once again for this. But I would want a wee bit more sweetness out of a 9% double IPA. I would just want a little bit of that brown sugary sort of thing, just to let you know this is, if you're going to have a double IPA, you want it to show you this is a big boozy thing, especially if it's 9%. This, I don't know where you would consider the border between triple and double. This isn't far away from it. 9 or 10% would be the border for me. But yeah, if you're going to have a big beer like this, I don't really want a bready one. I want it to have a little bit of sweetness to it. But maybe that's my kind of hangover, if you like, from the West Coast IPAs, because you could always tell just from the intensity of the brown sugars. And I guess maybe I expect something a little bit similar of the New England IPAs, whereas some breweries tend to just, they just tend to get thicker and more bready. I mean, I get to a point with that where I'm like, if I have something that's just so bready in flavour, when you could just have, a 6% or a 7% that has the same flavour profile, that's just me. But I think in fairness, when you drink it, you do get a bit of that stickiness out of it. But yeah, it is pretty. It is a solid beer. That I'm not, it might seem as if I'm knocking it, but it's up to the same standards as Toyo. You have to remember this, that beer is subjective, and it's just me. I would prefer something a little bit sweeter from a 9%er. But if you like a big, bready, smooth New England IPA, this is going to tick all the boxes for you. So yeah, it's got a good green component to it as well. It has got a bit of depth to the green component, and the fruits are quite smooth and juicy as well. But yeah, I like how this, I do like how this goes together in that sense. But yeah. Yeah, so where do we start with this then? Let's break it down for you as we always do. Straight away, across the middle of your palate then, you've got you do get a wee touch of bread crust to this, but I actually find that this one, it's got a bit of cracker to it. I think the backbone of this beer is a sort of Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing, and that goes across the middle and the back third of your palate. But on top of that, there's a wee bit more of a kind of bread crusty element to it, certainly like a fresh kind of bread crust, and then you start to get a bit of that kind of white bready character. You get a soft white bread with a wee bit of density to it. So I really like how that goes together in this beer. I think it works well. So yeah. Yeah, big. I think on top of that, you can really feel the wheat has a big influence in this beer. On top of the kind of softer white bread from the barley malt, you can feel the wheat really just thickening out this beer. We'll focus on the middle third of your palate. So yeah, cracker, bread crust, white bread, and then you get the thicker wheaty layer there. And on top of that, you can feel the oats. The oats go right down that kind of middle line of your tongue. It's like a kind of trench, the arch of your tongue, if you like. You can feel that there. Then they spread out a little bit towards the side of your palate. Absolutely. On top of that, there's some very nice kind of Werther's Original butter candy type things going on in this beer as well. So yeah, Werther's Original butter candy for sure sitting on top of the oats. I think that's for me, that's very apparent. Yeah, some nice Werther's Original butter candy type things in this beer, but they're not too prominent. This beer really does, the further you go into the aftertaste with it, it's more bready and oaty rather than anything else, and it's one of the drier. It's at the drier end of the New England IPA spectrum for me. So yeah, more oaty, dry oaty kind of characters you're getting out of this one, but we've seen this in the past from the brewery. But yeah, very dead centre of the palate. You might get a little touch of a straight up caramel when it's 9% ABV. That's to be expected because the alcohol flavours do tend to be brown sugary. But as you move further out from that, bit of Werther's Original, and potentially as you go towards the extremities of that middle third of your palate, a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity malt. So I like that for sure. But yeah, that's good. So that's the middle third of your palate. Let's focus on the back third of your palate then. So the border region between middle third and back third of your palate. As you go into that border region there, there's a nice little bit of a kind of bread crusty sort of thing. So yeah, I can appreciate that with this beer. A nice kind of bread crusty element to it. That's great. Then the back end of underneath that, so you get a bit of cracker, bread crust. The bread crust is incidentally a bit more grainy at the back of that that back third of your palate. On top of that, bit of a white bread, of course, the wheaty element there, you can get a little bit of the bitiness off the wheat. Then on top of all of that, you can feel the yeasty character in the beer. As I always say, I think the yeastiness sits in the back third of your palate, and you can really feel some of that sort of woody, bready, slightly farmhousey sort of thing. I've always found these Toil beers have just a little element of that farmhousey character to the bread. So I think that works. But at the back of that, at the back of that front third of your palate, you get a nice at the back of that, the back of the palate, the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour's quite tall. As you come further forward, it condenses down a little bit, and as you go into the middle third of your palate, it just yeah, it condenses down a wee bit, and that's that. So yeah, I think that covers the malty, yeasty part of the beer. Let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. So the back corners of the palate, definitely a wee bit of earthiness there, but not too much. As you move further forward, potentially a little bit of herbal character, but yeah, as you push further forward, it becomes more floral and aromatic. And I would say it's quite a bright floral aromaticity, not spicy or anything like that, but a bit of a wetter floral aromaticity. But yeah, I think it goes together quite well in that sense. I think it works out pretty well, for sure. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That green component in this one, it's got a nice bit of depth to it, but at the same time it's quite bright, but not overly deep or spicy or anything like that. But round the front curve of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a lighter, grassy sort of thing to this one. It's got a little bit of a wetter, grassy element to it and some kind of zesty characters. But yeah, I think it builds up quite nicely in that way. You get a nice little bit of a grassy, sort of zesty kind of thing in there as well. But yeah, it goes together. Yeah, it does go together pretty solidly. The grassiness, I think, yeah, quite a wet, kind of fresh cut grass that you get off of this. And that's interesting. But yeah, green component is quite satisfying on this. Let's look at the fruity part of the beer then. So, front third of your palate, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, bit of a bready build-up, bit of a kind of bread crusty sort of thing. Then the base of that front third of your palate, it's a wee bit, you actually get a little bit of woodiness underneath it and a bit of graininess, but smooth white bread. Then on top of that, you get the nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. This is what we've seen before. But yeah, this is interesting. So towards the back of that front third of your palate, you definitely get a wee bit of a passion fruit there. Although it's not the most pungent of passion fruits, but it actually comes out a wee bit more the further you go into the aftertaste. So there is a wee bit of pungent passion fruit lingering there. As you move forward from that, you get a bit of a softer, juicier kind of mango, and you can feel some of the softer fruits from the Idaho 7 coming out in this one. But the tropical fruit in this one is not quite as it's not quite as soft as I remember from Idaho 7. I think maybe the Zappa is being used as a bigger part of the hop share in this. And remember, New England IPAs rely on late addition hopping mostly, or dry hopping, of course, as opposed to the West Coast IPAs, which have that and early addition hops in abundance. But yeah, you do get a bit more of a kind of pungent tropical note out of this, which would make sense, because Zappa is supposed to have quite a big passion fruity presence, and I can get that out of this beer, but I got, it's only in the aftertaste that you get some of the softer notes of the Idaho 7, which is kind of interesting. But as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, Amarillo all the way, you can get that big, oily, juicy, orangey note there, and the real zestiness from the Amarillo as well. So big orangey characters right at the front edge of the palate there, and I think that works very, very well. So yeah. Yeah, I think on the the fruity side overall, I'd say it's quite nice and oily and slick, to be honest with you. But I like that. It's quite well balanced actually between the orangey tangerine, the orangey notes of the Amarillo, and then the tropical notes of the Zappa. I think the Idaho 7 for me really takes a back seat in this, and it's the pungency of the Zappa that comes out a bit more. So yeah, that's food for thought actually. The Idaho 7 is almost a bit, it feels a little bit almost redundant in this beer, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, that's interesting. But I do see what they mean about the minty thing. You do get a little bit of that kind of freshness on the front of the palate too, which is interesting. But yeah, overall this is quite an interesting beer, and it's difficult to compare this to the other ones we've had from the double IPA series before. But you always get a solid double IPA from Tool. But like I say, they lean towards the breadier and yeastier end of the New England spectrum. But yeah, to round off with the mouthfeel then, which we've kind of touched on, I'd say bottom end of full bodied, smooth carbonation, a bit slick, but as I say, these beers have that big bready, kind of creamy sort of thing to them. So that's worth bearing in mind with this too. But on the hoppy side of things, in terms of IBUs, I think this is maybe a little bit more than 30. I think it's maybe about 40, 50 at a push. You do get a wee bit more bitterness off this. I think I'm tempted to say 40. The malt base is kind of smooth and thick, but it dries out a little bit. You get a bit more graininess out of it the further you go into the beer. And remember, you get a bit of yeastiness from these Toil ones as well, which is really apparent in this. Then the fruity side of the beer is quite juicy and oily. You've got a bit of a pungent tropical note to it, but also some nice oily, orangey, citrusy characters. So yeah, I like how this one goes together. It's pretty solid. And it is a little bit more of a drier, bready New England IPA, but nice to come back to Toil for a double IPA after what feels like a little while. I think the last one we reviewed was in like June or something, so I think this is about the right amount of time to come back and review one of these. But yeah, good stuff again from them. So thumbs up to Toil, and I think we can leave it at that. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share. Pardon me, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Toil. And as I said, we will return to these guys at some point soon. Check out my social media, check out theirs. This one was the double IPA at number 6, 9% ABV, New England hazy variety from Toil in Svinninge in Denmark. Slange, skål, cheers, and see you guys on the next review.